Hello everybody, this is quite a short month, so I haven't really done much for uh, music reviews because there hasn't really been that many things I want to talk about, and frankly for this video, probably like 8 albums I think I've got listed here, so July just hasn't really had much to talk about, at least in the rock and metal scenes, so it's been quite limited, so this should be a short video, and other time as well, I would have had this one out a little bit sooner, but I was editing a video for another channel of mine called Float Up Creek. It's just a silly video, just fun video going on about weird video game advertisements with my 2 other mates on there. So if you want to check it out, I'll put it in the description. But yep, we're going to be going through albums I haven't been able to talk about, or better yet, albums I saved because there hasn't been much to talk about. So let's go into it. We got to talk about Bush, I Beat Loneliness. This is the band's next album in the discography, and it's upsetting to see the legacy of Bush kind of go this way. Bush was one of the grunge bands that formed just as Nirvana disbanded, mainly due to Kurt Cobain's passing, and Bush managed to kind of make a name for themselves. Even though they're not very talked about now, they had such a huge presence around the 90s and even the early noughties. They were one of the bigger rock bands at the time. They just had a lot of success, numerous hits, and it's insane to see a band like that just kind of fizzle out entirely. They kind of took what happened with Pearl Jam. Apart from Pearl Jam had a much more successful debut and have always been kind of an iconic, legendary name, whereas Bush kind of just came out of nowhere, had some success, and just fizzled out onwards. And it's unfortunate because Pearl Jam's comeback is exactly an example of how a grunge band can change genre and make an album that the masses enjoy. Dark Matter was very well received. It's a hard rock album that just plays with some fun elements. Eddie Vedder's voice is great on it. Production sounds crisp. Why did Bush go wrong with this? Well, Bush kind of just diverted to hard rock. There's less of the creativity as in their grunge era to kind of go for this more generic radio hard rock sound that makes bands like Alter Bridge and Tremonti feel like some of the magnum opus when it comes to hard rock music. And it's just baffling how we have numerous songs that just feel like the lead singer's got this teenage angst but he's an older gentleman, so it just kind of comes off as kind of cringy to listen to it. Lyrically it's not great, instrumentally it's not very catchy either, and I think vocally with the chorus, with the writing, the verses, nothing really hooked me on this one. I think while it might not be Bush's worst album, I can definitely say it's certainly not one of their best either, so yeah, I'm gonna have to give this one a 2. We got a brand new album by Scary Kids, Scaring Kids, Maps Written in Water. This is the second album now without the lead singer Tyson Stevens, who unfortunately passed away quite a bit ago, and Scary Kids, Scaring Kids wanted to kind of come back and try something new. So the previous album was kind of a jumbled mess. It used songs that he he recorded, so pretty much basically posthumously releasing some stuff, but this album has nothing to do with him. Instead, the concept focuses on having a bunch of different guest vocalists for this, and honestly the way it kind of presents itself is what a lot of DJs do, especially when they don't sing and they get other people to do singing for them because they're mainly just the producers. Kind of feels like that, but instead it's the band kind of doing this concept, and I honestly think it absolutely does not work whatsoever. Even if you have some interesting choices like Andy Sisek from Monuments, or you even have some Flyleaf members as well, I don't think it really changes anything necessarily. I just feel like it doesn't work because there's so many different ideas, different sounds, and having the guest vocalist, it just doesn't really feel like there's really anything that resembles kind of classic Scary Kids, Scaring Kids. It just feels like a random idea to just throw features on, and I just really don't see anything interesting this album has to offer, to be honest. And another thing that kind of bugged me is, why would you bring Tillian, of all people, onto this? Tillian has had an absolute weird kind of sexual allegation shit, and I think ever since that's kind of come out about him, I've never really dabbled with Dance Gavin Dance, and just, yeah, I think Dillian's just kind of a scummy person, but I don't know why he's still kind of sneaking his way into things. I don't know, but yeah, this just generally did not work whatsoever. I don't think there's even one song I would consider going back to on this. By far, probably one of the most uninspired, one of the most unoriginal post-hardcore albums I've ever listened to, and it just, I feel like at this point they should either just kind of wrap the band up, make a new band, or have a new lead singer, because I just don't really see how this is going to be the future for the band. Scary Kids Scaring Kids, I kind of view this at this point just kind of like a cash grab on the name, but that's just it. I don't like this one. I'm going to have to give it a 1.5 out of 5. I generally have no reason to go back into this one ever again. Psycho Frame have dropped Salvation Laughs in the Face of a Grieving Mother, a new deathcore album release of the year, especially with a band on Sharp Tone, probably one of the only deathcore bands their record label has had. Now, I think by the numbers, it's just as deathcore can sound. I don't think it's really a bad presence, and frankly, songs on its own do quite work nicely, to say the least. I feel like if you just had kind of a heavy workout playlist and some of the songs slumped in, here and there you hear like one or two of them, you probably think that shit works great. But I think in terms of an album, I just don't think it really gives much difference or versatility when it comes to the record. The only thing that even felt different was having Mood Ring, a shoegaze alt metal band that sounds nothing like Psycho Frame and sounds more or less in line with bands like Deftones, Thornhill and Loaf. So it's quite interesting to see them feature on here, but I don't think it does much because their lead singer just does unclean vocals, so it doesn't really put any of the Mood Ring sound on there. So it's basically almost just the same as it was without them, but it is fine. I think the album is good enough as a whole, but the production is a bit shoddy, and I think it's kind of just makes the instrumentals feel a little unpolished in terms of what it's going for. But I enjoy the heavy of it. I think it's good. I'll give it a 3. I intended to actually do a full video separate for Born of Osiris Through Shadows, but with the time I had while I did record it, I thought it'd be better if I just edit it into this video, so this is a shortened version of what I thought of it. So Through Shadows, in my opinion, kind of takes the weakest aspects we've heard from the band so far. The electronic is pushed even heavier than before, and while the band hasn't really tackled into their kind of more death core sort of sound and focusing more on this metalcore electronic blend, I find the writing, it just doesn't quite hit as some of their earlier stuff does. I feel like the songs generally do have some innovative ideas, and still some of them are pretty enjoyable, but for a whole concrete listen, I just kind of struggle to listen to it. I find a lot of the elements just kind of take away from some of the best creative writing, and considering the fact we've had a key component of the band, the guitarist, I believe, left at this point, I'm very curious to see how they go on without him. But this kind of step from what they've had, especially when they had the Angel or Alien record last album cycle, 2021 I believe it was more enjoyable, and I felt they kind of made the aspect work. Here it feels more gimmicky, and I just don't really like it as much. I don't know if I'm in the minority who thinks that, but Born of Osiris here, they generally had some good shit in the past. I just don't think this really is their best work at all. I'm gonna have to give it a 2, I'm afraid. We got the new one by Daron Malakian and Scars on Broadway, Addicted to the Violence, their 3rd record, and I find it just a little bit underwhelming. I'll explain why. What I like about Daron Malakian is that he has something to channel his creativity post System of a Down into a new band, and I appreciate that, because Daron, I will say, he's kind of like the brains behind the band, similar to Mike Shinoda in Linkin Park, but they have lead singers like Serge is pretty much the lead singer of System of a Down, the same way that Chester Bennington was lead singer of Linkin Park. They just acts as the front man that gets a lot of the attention, but still attention goes to Daron as well as does for Mike Shinoda. And Daron is the one who does pretty much all the riffs. He's generally just a really good addition to the band as well, and I honestly think him and Serge play off each other nicely. But since we lose the component of Serge, as well as not really having Chavo or John onto this, it just kind of feels a little like it's missing the key components towards it. I just kind of find because of that we do get one side of the coin that has a lot of this ambitious energy, and I still feel like there's some good riffs, there's some solid vocal performance from Daron, but it just kind of feels like they're trying to replicate a missing piece of what System of a Down was, and it's not really working for them, I don't think. I feel like this album's not bad in the sense that it just is more or less kind of repeating itself in similar ideas. It doesn't quite have a distinction. I find a lot of the songs just kind of feel like they were System of a Down songs. They just kind of flow off like Protect the Land and Genocidal Humanoids would, focusing more on a kind of serious take. I mean, obviously there's a lot of politics in System of a Down, but yeah, I generally feel like while this is interesting, it just doesn't really go anywhere, and that's kind of my issue with it. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5 because I still think it's promising enough. I just kind of think the execution, it just doesn't really give us anything that interesting result-wise. Got the new one by the K's, Pretty on the Internet. I think this one's heading for the band's first #1 album, which, you know, good for them. I personally don't think it's anything impressive though, and from what I've heard of the K's beforehand, this is kind of just trying to set in stone this very basic sound of their kind of pop rock indie blends that doesn't really feel like it's anything original or offer anything that exciting, to be honest. A lot of it just kind of slumps together as just this kind of weird amalgamation of kind of regurgitated indie pop elements that I just don't think really does anything unique for the band. It's cool if this is the direction they want to go for, but I can't say I'm one that I'd enjoy at all. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a 2 out of 5. I thought it was quite dull. So we got a brand new one by We Are Scientists, Qualifying Miles. Honestly, this was just a bit barren again. I feel like the issue I have with this band is that they're trying to reignite the spark they once had in their more or less indie sound, and I appreciate some of the ideas. I like the fact that some songs go with a little bit more energy. One song even teeters sort of onto that hard rock sound, which is very surprising and just kind of a nice change of pace, but stuff like that does not really entice what is most of the record. I feel like it's just a lot of this kind of mediocrity sound lurking into more present ideas of them, and it's unfortunate to say that because I feel like We Are Scientists have had some good stuff in the past, but yeah, this doesn't really even beat the 2023 album I talked about. I feel like this is just kind of another nothing burger of an album, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to give it a 2. We got a brand new album by the Dirty Nil, The Lash. So this album pops off with one of the best songs we've had from the Dirty Nil, in my opinion. Gallop the Hounds just has a kind of like pop punk fun sound. It reminds me of Green Day if they pushed a little bit more into pop punk as well as teetering into post-hardcore. And while I do enjoy the hard rock aspect of this, I just don't think really any of the songs even come close to the opening track. I don't mind the last song, I Was a Henchman, is kind of a nice way to close the record off, and somewhere in the middle we have Do You Want Me, which I think is, while not necessarily great lyrically, I think it's definitely one of the more intriguing songs on the record. But outside of these three, I didn't really get any really enjoyment out of this one. I feel like there's definitely aspects and the concrete steps into making a pretty good record here, but a lot of it just kind of lacks the execution, and it often just comes off as a very bland mess. Sometimes you get some slow songs that just really don't necessarily fit the groove of the record, and other points you just have some of the weakest writing, and the songs as well just kind of feel a bit beige and not really have much to it, which is kind of an issue I had with quite a bit of this. I was looking forward to this one, and I think I was a little bit disappointed, so I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. This is lucky because I almost forgot to review this one. So THROATCUT, The Resilience, this is their debut, a very small metalcore band that has a lot of this kind of aggressive beat to it, and I generally think it's interesting, the concept and theory, but my whole execution is not entirely their best. I feel like the best redeeming fact with this album is, while there's not really one song I particularly like, there is not one song I particularly dislike. There's just not really anything I would go on my way to listen to, unfortunately. I feel like THROATCUT's kind of a slow burn, get into it sort of aesthetic. I like what it offers. I think it's definitely underrated in some sense, and frankly, the song Death Rebirth was probably one of the ones I remember this coming out as a single, and I thought this was pretty good. But yeah, as a whole album, I think it's just alright. It's definitely an alright album where I don't think there really is much to it, but at the same time, the quality is definitely far from bad. It's just far from being good as well. So yeah, it's alright. 2.5 out of 5. And to finally wrap off July, we have Styx' brand new album, Circling from Above. So Styx has been going for quite a while, since the 70s, and honestly, they haven't been a band with the highest amount of praise, especially with a lot of their stuff kind of feeling like it's what Kansas or Yes sort of have done. And I think Styx generally does have some good shit back in the day, but with this whole album, as I have not listened to too much Styx, to be honest, I feel like from first opinion here, it is actually interesting how there's some skips for sure, but the album generally does create this fun energy throughout the entire record. It kind of reminds me of the fun prog rock aspect you can get on something like Magnum, but apart from Magnum, I think is a lot more of a concrete listen. This one generally towards the end kind of fumbles some good stuff, but easily the best material is at the start. Circling from Above is one hell of an intro that goes straight away into some of the best songs on the album, like Michigan or King of Love. I generally love the flow of these. And then Blue Eyed Raven's probably the first time I would have a skip track. It's fine, I just don't think by any standards it does anything great, but I just love the use of synths, the kind of use of this prog element, and even the pianos and keys are quite nice for the record. Not anything sanely good, but I mean, for a band that's been going for a while, and honestly I was expecting this just to kind of be a hit or miss album, it's pretty decently good, so I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I'm actually quite surprised by this. It's been a short month, but yep, that is everything from July. Now August has a lot more stuff going on, and with what's going on IRL, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how much of it I can get. Considering the fact that the uploads haven't been as great, it was originally weather, but now it's also other factors like, well, I'm trying to get another job as well, and then you've also got holidays coming up, I've got concerts, and just other sort of plans as well, so hopefully I can tackle a lot of August, and I would like to get more separate reviews up rather than just leave them to the end of the month, because frankly it's not that fun. But yeah, with how dead July was, I kind of just thought I might as well just leave it towards the end, because it's not even going to be that long if I even covered some of these. So there you go, I hope you enjoy, thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.